So it's Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 13. Still, Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Alright. Om Namo Bhagavate
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
The Lord, while lying on his bed of mystic slumber, generated the seminal symbol, golden in hue, through external energy out of his desire to manifest varieties of living entities from himself alone. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verses 7 to 8, the creation and annihilation of the material world are stated as follows. At the end of each millennium, the creative forces, namely the material nature and the living entities who struggle in the material nature, all merge together into the transcendental body of the Lord. And again, when the Lord desires to manifest them, all of them are again displayed by the Lord. Therefore, the material nature is working under the control of the Lord. All of them under the agency of material nature and under the control of the Lord. This bench is broken. It's very uncomfortable. And thus repeatedly created, annihilated by the will of the Lord. It's like one bit's broken on it, in it, one of the planks. It's not very comfortable.
As such, before the creation or manifestation of the material cosmic world, the Lord exists as total energy, Mahasamasti. And thus, desiring himself to be diffused to many, he expands himself further into multi-total energy, Samashti. From the multi-total energy, he further expands himself into individuals in 3 dimensions, namely Adhyatmic, Adhidaivic, and Adhibautic, as explained before, Vyasti. As such, the whole creation and the creative energies are non-different and different simultaneously. Because everything is an emanation from him, the Mahavishnu or Mahasamasti, nothing of the cosmic energies is different from him. But all such expanded energies have specific functions and display as designed by the Lord, and therefore they are simultaneously different from the Lord. The living entities are also similar energy, marginal potency of the Lord, and thus they are simultaneously one with and different from him.
At the stage of non-manifestation, the living energies remain potent in the Lord, and when they are let loose in the cosmic manifestation, they are exhibited differently in terms of different desires under the modes of nature. Such differential manifestations of the living energies are conditional states of the living entities. The liberated living entities, however, in the Sanatan eternal manifestation, are unconditionally surrendered souls, and therefore they are not subject to the conditions of creation and annihilation. So this creation takes place by the glance of the Lord from his bedstead of mystic slumber. And thus all the universes and the Lord of the universe, Brahma, are again and again manifested and annihilated.
Okay. A little noisy here, although it's a park, but
Yeah.
Russell Square was very, very busy. This is a little more quiet as far as numbers of people, but it's right by the road. Okay, so 10:14. Just hear from me how the potency of his lordship divides into 3, called the controlling entities, the controlled entities, and the material bodies, in the manner mentioned above. 10:15. From the sky, situated within the transcendental body of the manifesting Mahavishnu, sense energy, mental force, and bodily strength are all generated, as well as the sum total of the fountainhead of the total living force. As the followers of a king follow their lord, similarly, when the total energy is in motion, all other living entities move. And when the total energy stops endeavoring, all other living entities stop sensual activities. I'm reading these, but I'm not really getting it. So I need to slow down and think. As the followers of a king follow their Lord. Okay, we got that? Followers of a king follow the Lord. Similarly, when the total energy is in motion, that means once all the parts of the energy have combined and started to move more or less of their own accord, all other living entities move. And when the total energy stops endeavoring, all other living entities stop sensual activities. So basically, once the material energy or the material creation is set in motion, then all the living entities start to move. They also are impregnated into that and they start to be active. And as soon as it winds down and stops, then they also stop. Purport. The individual living entities are completely dependent on the total energy of the Supreme Purusha. No one has independent existence, just as no electric lamp has independent effulgence. Each and every electrical instrument depends fully on the total powerhouse. The total powerhouse depends on the reservoir of water for generating electricity. Water depends on the clouds, and the clouds depend on the sun. The sun depends on creation, and the creation depends on the movement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes. So that's really nice. Nice analogy there about how a lamp is dependent on electricity, and electricity is dependent on the reservoir of water for generating electricity. Water depends on the clouds depend on the sun depends on the creation, and the creation depends on the movement of God. So everything is interdependent. No one can say that he or she are independent. Everyone is dependent on something or someone else, and ultimately God, like that.
Translate. Oh, purport. No, verse. Verse 17. The living force, being agitated by the Virat Purusha, generated hunger and thirst, and when he desired to drink and eat, the mouth opened. Purport. The process by which all living beings in the womb of the mother develop their sense organs and sense perceptions appears to follow the same principles in the case of the Virat Purusha, the sum total of all living entities. Therefore, the supreme cause of all generation is not impersonal without desire. The desires for all kinds of sense perception and sense organs exist in the Supreme, and thus they take place in the individual persons. This desire is the nature of the Supreme Living Being, the Absolute Truth. Because he has the sum total of all mouths, the individual living entities have mouths. Similarly, with all other senses and sense organs, here the mouth.
Similarly, with all other
I
senses
just thought I'd continue.
and sense organs.
Here the mouth is a symbolic representation of all sense organs, for the same principles apply to the others also.
Okay, what's your reflection on that purport?
Oh, it says it in the verse. When he desired to drink and eat, his mouth opened.
Say that again?
It says it in the verse that when he desired to drink and eat, the mouth opened. And then Prabhupada says in the purport, it follows the same principles as we do.
Which means?
When we want to eat and drink, we open our mouths.
Profound revelation. Okay.
It's simple for the simple.
Yeah, especially those who like to eat and drink, I guess. Mouth open. All right. Text 18 looks like a winner. From the mouth, the palate became manifested, and thereupon the tongue was also generated. After this, all the different tastes came into existence so that the tongue can relish them. I really like these sections because it describes how the different elements come into being, and then, well, actually here what it's the elements come into being, then the senses come into being, and then the sense objects come into being. So here we see the tongue is being created, and then it says, and after this, all the different tastes will come into existence so that the tongue has something to relish. But first, the mouth, the palate, and the tongue are generated. So, purport. Yeah, so actually a note I've made is that, well, let's read through the purport. This gradual process of evolution suggests the explanation of the controlling deities Adidaiva, because Varuna is the controlling deity for all relishable juices. Therefore, the mouth becomes the resting place for the tongue, which tastes all the different juices, of which the controlling deity is Varuna. This suggests, therefore, that Varuna was also generated along with the development of the tongue. The tongue and the palate, being instrumental, are adibhutam, or forms of matter, but the functioning deity, who is a living entity, is adidaiva, whereas the person undergoing the function is adiyatma. So it's very interesting because it's quite a different, it sounds quite a different concept from what we normally talk about with adi-atmic, adi-bhotic, and adi-daivic. So here, if we understand, if I can understand, that Varun was generated along the tongue and the palate being instrumental are adibhutam. So usually adibhutam is other living entities.
Yeah.
Other living entities. So the tongue and the palate are considered adibhutam. So, or forms of matter, okay? But the functioning deity, who is the living entity, is adidaiva. So maybe that would be Varun, because he's the source of rasas or taste. Whereas the person undergoing the function is adiyatmic, which would make sense. So adidaivic would mean the devatas or the greater forces of nature. Adiyatmic would be the individual soul, the atma, and so like that. Thus the three categories are also explained as to their birth after the opening of the mouth of the Virat Purusha. The four principles mentioned in this verse serve to explain the three main principles, namely the Adiyatma, Adidaiva, and Adibhutam, as explained before. So then it seems that creation starts with the mouth, desiring to eat and drink, and thus the tongue is created for the palate and taste. And Varun is in charge of the varieties of tasty juices. Okay, so, yeah. Any thoughts on this?
Food for thought.
Food for thought. Lots of parrots.
Yeah, very auspicious. Text 19. When the Supreme desired to speak, speeches were vibrated from the mouth. Then the controlling deity fire was generated from the mouth. But when he was lying in the water, all these functions remained suspended. Purport. The peculiarity of the gradual development of the sense organs is simultaneously supported by their controlling deities. It is to be understood, therefore, that the activities of the sense organs are controlled by the will of the Supreme. The senses are, so to speak, offering a license for the conditioned souls who are to use them properly under the control of the controlling deity deputed by the Supreme Lord. One who violates such controlling regulations has to be punished by degradation to a lower status of life. Consider, for example, the tongue and its controlling deity Varuna. The tongue is meant for eating, and men, animals, and birds each have their different tastes because of different licenses. The taste of human beings and that of the swine are not on the same level. Oh, I don't know these days, to be honest with you. No, it's true. What I see in Sainsbury's the other day, I'm not joking. I saw a packet, I thought there was crisps or something hanging down on the aisle, and it was roast cockroaches in Sainsbury's. I took a picture and everything.
No, I never saw it.
No, I'll even show you. It's in that local Sainsbury's. Ugh. I was like, oh, what's this new thing? Oh. So anyway, I think that we're lower than swines. So the controlling deity, however, awards or certifies a particular type of body when the particular living entity develops a taste in terms of different modes of nature. If the human being develops taste without discrimination, as does the swine, then the controlling deity is certainly certified for the next term to award him the body of a swine. There you go.
Yeah, so if you want to eat some cockroaches, then you can come back as like a...
I tell what would he eat? Like a
anteater or a bird.
or
Birds eat bugs.
lizard.
Excuse me, or a lizard, yeah.
The swine accepts any kind of foodstuff, including stools, and a human being who has developed such indiscriminate taste must be prepared for a degraded life in the next life. Such a life is also God's grace, because the conditioned soul desired a body like that for perfectly tasting a particular type of foodstuff. If a man gets the body of a swine, it must be considered the grace of the Lord, because the Lord awards the facility. After death, the next body is offered by superior control, not blindly. A human being, therefore, must be on his guard as to what sort of body he is going to have in the next life. An irresponsible life of indiscrimination is risky, and that is the declaration of all scriptures.
So, yeah, you have to be careful. If you allow your senses to be out of control, then that's going to dictate the next body that you get. And then if you go backwards, which is Neha Bikamanasya Si Pratyavayona Vidyate, that if we, there's no loss or diminution on the path of pure devotional service, and it can save us from the most dangerous type of fear, which Srila Prabhupada says is taking birth in an animal species. Then you go backwards and you wind up getting stuck in this cycle, and it's hard to break out of. So, while you have a human body, you should make the most of it.
Yeah, but it's very, because Prabhupada also, like, the faith and, not to be controversial, religion or faith, they're also in the modes, different levels. So then, without saying any particular faith, there was this thing on YouTube, and they're of a particular faith family, and they were visiting another family culture, and they had this spread out of their cultural food on the table. And they were, what's that? Oh, why don't you try it all? And it was like fried wasps, and on this side it was like bumblebees, and I won't even say what the other stuff was. It was like nasty, But then their connection was their faith. A faith, I won't say, but it was horrible. And they were trying. Well, I don't know. Upset anyone, but it was.
No, I didn't say where. Where were you saying it?
Oh, on YouTube, one of those faith families. Yeah. I was like, oh God. Yeah.
Well, different people. If you live in a jungle, all you have to eat is wasps. Then okay,
we're in a jungle.
Krishna.
Yeah.
But in different countries, people eat all kinds of stuff.
Oh dear.
Pretty crazy. Okay, so.
But they said a prayer before they ate. That was my point. That's my connection there.
Yeah.
They said grace.
Grace. Well, that doesn't give away what faith they are. Text number 20. Thereafter, when the Supreme Purusha desired to smell odors, the nostrils and respiration were generated, the nasal instrument and the odors came into existence. So again, this is actually describing the senses of the Virat Purusha, meaning the universal form. So, in one sense, yes, how these senses and sense organs came into being, and sense objects. The senses, the sense organs, and the sense objects. Thereafter, when the Supreme Purusha desired to smell odors, the nostrils and respiration were generated. The nasal instrument and odors came into existence, and the controlling deity of air, which is Vayu, deity of air carrying smell, also became manifested. Purport. The nasal instrument, odor, and the controlling deity of air, smelling, etc., all became manifested simultaneously when the Lord desired to smell. The Vedic mantras confirm this statement in the Upanishad's statement that everything is first desired by the Supreme before the subordinate living entity can act upon it. The living entity can see only when the Lord sees. The living entity can smell when the Lord smells, and so on. The idea is that the living entity cannot do anything independently. He can simply think of doing something independently, but he cannot act independently. Oh, I see. So you can think of trying to do something independently, but you can't act independently. This independence in thinking is there by the grace of the Lord, But the thinking can be given shape by the grace of the Lord, and therefore the common saying is that man proposes and God disposes. The whole explanation is on the subject of the absolute dependence of the living entities and the absolute independence of the Supreme Lord. Less intelligent persons claiming to be on an equal level with God must first prove themselves to be absolute and independent, and then they must substantiate their claim to being one with God. Interesting point. Yeah. So this is very powerful. That again, sense of smell, the sense organ, the nose, and then the odor, and then of course Vayu carries the aroma. And what's that verse in the Bhagavad Gita? As the air carries aroma from one place to another, similarly the subtle body carries the soul from one body to another. It's is it 8th chapter?
I don't remember.
No, it's not. 8 chapters Antakalecha Mamika. It must be 16th chapter. Shrotavyam Satitam Vishnu or something like that. No, I'll have to look it up. Everything's getting back to normal.
Yeah.
One sunny day in London. Sunny day in London means let's get out of the house, you know. It's crazy out here.
It's not even that much sun, you know. If
It is very sunny. There's not a cloud in the sky.
No, but it's not sunny as in it's hot. Look at the way we're dressed.
Well, yeah, but
like in America, this would be winter.
Overdressed.
But to us, this is summer.
Well, it is winter, but...
You don't never agree with me, but anyway.
I do. I always agree with you.
All right.
Never is there a time I didn't agree with you.
Right, text 21. Thus, when everything existed in darkness, the Lord desired to see himself on all that was created. Then the eyes, the illuminating God's Son, the power of vision, and the object of all sight, all became manifest. Purport. The universe is by nature dense darkness, and therefore the total creation is called tamas, or darkness. The night is a real feature of the universe. For then one cannot see anything, including oneself. So you remember that was a good point. Look, the night is the real feature of the universe. Because one time recently we were walking through the park and it was dark. It wasn't like late night, but it was really interesting. It had a really powerful effect. So I was thinking, this is the real material world, because it's illuminated either with the street lights, and there weren't any there for some reason, or like now through sun, which is not God, which is not man created. It's God created. Without the sun, we'd be in big trouble. And I was just thinking, this dark, that is the material world. It's naturally always dark, and it really made me feel quite
what?
Deep, like in realization.
Well, there you go.
It really did. The Lord, out of his causeless mercy, first desired to see himself, and all the creation as well. And thus the sun became manifested, the power of vision for all living entities became possible, see? And the objects of vision were also manifested. This means that the whole phenomenal world became visible after the creation of the sun. You see, and the sun isn't created by scientists in a laboratory with with letters after his name, quite frankly. Because if anything happens to the sun, I'm sorry, Stephen Hawking isn't going to help us. I just want to say that.
You just did.
That's true. We've got to appreciate the greatness that is around us. Whether you believe it's a form or not a form, there is a force out there that is bigger than us. Ultimately, it's a force, because we can't have form and we can't. Yeah, if he ain't got a form and we have, then we must be God, and we're not. We're not going down that route. But so he has to have a form, and he has to have a better form than us. Otherwise, we're better than him. That's the conclusion there.
May the force be with you.
Bhagavatam in 5 sentences.
Did you finish that paragraph?
Yeah, and I did the purport. Do you want to end now?
Let's see, what we got? 21. Let's read this last one. 21.
No, I just read 21.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry, I was looking for that verse
It was
that I can't remember.
distracting.
Well, I was looking for the verse about the air carrying Romans.
Never mind.
That was the 16th chapter of the Gita, but it's not. So let's see, it's 22. Okay, 22, and then we'll finish. Well, no, let's finish there. So we'll start with 22 next time.
Oh my
See?
goodness.
It's getting crazy out here.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much. Don't forget, if you'd like a set of Chaitanya Charitamritas, please do let us know. We'll happily supply it to you. Otherwise, just read the Bhagavatam. Be happy. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.